Hello there, Eric Rainwater here. I've been trying to get videos posted on Tuesdays, and I've actually recorded ahead a lot of videos, but I didn't post this week because I wanted to get my thoughts kind of clear on the crazy events of this last weekend. I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about. I also realize as I sit here that I'm wearing a tie-dye t-shirt and I'm smoking. Nothing in here but straight Virginia tobaccos. No wacky tobacco in this stuff right here. I am not personally into that. But back to what happened this weekend. So I'm sure almost everyone has seen the video of, and especially that now iconic picture of the assassination attempt of Donald Trump. And this is not a channel where I just want to talk about politics all the time, because there's a lot of other things that I think matter more. At the same time, I do believe politics has its place, and it is very important, because it is the thing that in the natural rules our lives. If it wasn't for politics, we wouldn't have a nation. We wouldn't have any nations. Communities of people, large scale, small scale, must have leadership. Even anarchist groups have a leader. But I want to talk about my views on Donald Trump for whoever may listen, If this is nothing but an exercise of me kind of collecting my own thoughts for myself, that's all right. But if it helps someone, who has a question, who doesn't fully understand. So there's part of it I want to address some questions that I've heard before. But before I jump into Donald Trump himself and maybe even my thoughts on the assassination itself, which isn't mostly what I want to talk about. It's just we're in a moment, and so it's on all our minds, so to not talk about it is kind of disingenuous in my mind. But I want to go back to when my eyes opened to the politics in this country. And I don't think I posted it yet. I actually already made a video where I talked about, so it'll be uploaded here maybe next week or so, about just kind of the beginning of my experience in politics, on a very small scale, but it was the beginning of my eyes opening. But after high school, which I graduated in 2004, which, to some people, I'm very young, and to others, I'm an old guy, But in 2005, my eyes were opened to the fact that whether Democrat or Republican, for the most part, these people do not care about us. They don't. They care about themselves. And they care about their power. And there, yes, I explored. There was a lot of conspiracy theories rolling around. But it's pretty obvious there is something going on, because there are people in power that want to stay in power, and they don't want us to have power. They want us to just do whatever they say. And they'll play both sides of the game and keep us divided, so they can do whatever they want. Well, that's also history. It doesn't take, you don't have to have some wild conspiracy theory to believe that. Throughout history, powerful people have conspired together many times, not always against the population, but not really caring about the population. But sometimes it is against the population. Sometimes it is against goodness and righteousness, because there are evil people and they want to be in power. But Psalms 2 says that they plot in vain, and the Lord laughs with derision. So back then, I was in college Republicans, all this stuff. I was moving. I was being, groomed to get into politics. It was on many levels. But my eyes were, and so I kind of woke up to that and spent many years kind of being, and this was after I had voted for Bush twice. W. But I realized the Bush family and the Clintons and even the Bin Ladens in Saudi Arabia, they were all buddies. And these suckers, they made money off of war itself. That makes sense. I think it's naive to think that kind of stuff doesn't go on. I mean, this is, we're talking billions of dollars, millions of dollars. It's lots of money and lots of power. Power and glory and money. Of course these things are attractive to these people. It's attractive to us all. And so it makes sense. Why would we think that people in power and government are all just nice people that really, really care about people? No. That's naive. And so I spent many years I would call myself more of a conservative libertarian, and I would still like to be that. But to truly be a libertarian, you must have good people, right? Liberty, true liberty and freedom requires that good people, who are pursuing goodness. No one's truly good, but people who want goodness, who want righteousness, who want truth, they're the only ones that can bring that about. And sometimes it takes a fight. So for years, I watched as what seemed to me like an unstoppable force in the governments all over the world just did whatever they wanted, and they didn't care what we thought. And in one respect, I didn't care, because I came to peace with, well, the Bible talks about all this and says that God will deal with it when it's His time. not my job to worry about it. It's the test is to not worry about it. To trust him and trust him that he will make all wrong things right. And I had no hope for America, really. I love America, but we had gotten into a condition where these people were entrenched in power, and I didn't see a way out. And I didn't necessarily know that it necessarily mattered. It seemed like at some point it would lead to the destruction of America, and maybe God was done with America. It made me sad. At the same time, I had great hope, and I had times of encounter with the Lord where he really showed me how in the midst of trouble revival was going to come, that people would turn to the Lord, that we would have another great awakening. And I began to pray for a third great awakening, but then I've also looked back and realized that the coming out of the 60s into the 70s, the Jesus movement was really, you could say that was the third great awakening. So maybe we're praying for a fourth. But in the midst of all those times, it was always in all the circumstances around that. The first great awakening was kind of in and up around the American Revolution. Those things were going on. It was in these turbulent times. The second great awakening began before and was during the Civil War. The Jesus movement was in the upheaval of the sexual revolution and the hippies in Vietnam and all that stuff. I mean, you go back and you really look at the history of the 60s and 70s, it was bad times. Think about it. We had National Guards shooting college students in America on college campuses. That's bad. But now, who's in charge? Some of these boomers that grew up in these 60s that come out of the sexual revolution, and they're perverted and they want power and all this other stuff, and they've learned the language that sounds nice to people, that gives them the moral high ground, but then they do wicked and evil things, and they don't care. They don't care about the environment. What are you, stupid? Are you that naive? You really think they care? Now, there are people that care. Even in the midst of Congresses and all that, there are people who care, but the system is wicked and evil. You ain't got to be some prophetic guy or an insider to know that there is some kind of deep state. And at the same time, I don't want to say that it's some really smooth conspiracy theory where, you know, they're all in on it and they're all in the same meetings and they all know it, and it just runs as smooth as butter and they just do whatever they want. I don't think it works like that. I think it helps each other out, and they're greedy. And now at the same time, there is a conspiracy against humanity in the heavens, in the second heavens. The devil and fallen principalities. There is a war in the heavens. There's a war in the spirit over us. And it manifests, right, in different times in history. Oops. Oh, lost my tobacco, but whatever. I'll pack it here in a second and keep going. I make these videos pretty unedited, so we'll have a blooper in there. I ain't even gonna worry about it. But these people, manifest in history. That's what World War II was. Look at that. Look at Hitler. He was most assuredly in the spirit of Antichrist. Look at Stalin. Look at Mao. Wickedness manifest. Wicked men. who did whatever they wanted, and they did wicked, evil things. Now, on to Trump. What happened with Trump? Because at first, I'll be honest, I did not like him, and I'll get into all that. And so when Trump came on the scene, and all these, there were Christians. They were just like, this guy is great, and I was like, this guy, this dirty dude, this dirty greedy guy. I was like, I don't know, I don't think so. Like, he's the antithesis of what I think a true Christian should be, right? And so those who don't understand why Christians would vote for Trump, I get where you're coming from. I totally get it, because I was very much in the same way. I was like, this guy, he's not a good guy. But here's the question: does it? And I think of the Dry Creek Wrangler, Dwayne. You know, he said at one time that a great man does not have to be a good man, right? A great man does not have to be a good man. And that, you know, that sounds wrong to our ears. But what is a great man? That is part of the question. And we don't know yet if Donald Trump is a great man. But I'll start with this. If that system is wicked and evil, he sure as heck has exposed it. He has exposed it. We all, unless you're just lying to yourself, you're very aware that it's going on, right? We are all very aware of it. So what makes a man great and what makes him good? A good man is someone who is personally good, who personally does righteous things. And you can be a good man, you know, for the most part. No one's perfectly good, but you can be a good man and never be a great man in the sense of the world stage and history. And who cares? That doesn't matter. Not everybody's going to be the great man. Don't play the great man. I may never play a great man. I don't care. I'm not worried about that. I could be great in my circle, and I pray for that. I can be magnanimous in my circle. A great man, though, greatness comes when a man steps up, despite maybe himself, despite him, whether he's good or not, but he steps up and he does a great thing. He does a thing that saves a lot of people, or shifts a culture, shifts history, changes the narrative back to a right way. A man may not be no good at all. He may be a scumbag. He may, you know, he's selfish, he's greedy, he's a thief. All these things. But then all of a sudden, he comes upon a building on fire, and he hears a child, you know, or a puppy dog or whatever even in there. He hears someone screaming in there, and he is filled all of a sudden with boldness. and courage, and despite for his own safety, he rushes into the flames and pulls the child out, or the other person, or the animal out, and saves that being's life despite his own pain. That would make him, that act, a very great act. Despite how he's lived his life. And so all these Christians, I've heard Christians are like, how can you vote for Donald Trump? You know, all this stuff. And I'm like, hey, I get you, man. But how naive are you? You think that the leader of the world, in the midst of all these nations, and you got wicked nations led by wicked men who want to do unrighteous deeds, who want to do violence to other people and nations. You got Putin's, you know, you got Russia, you got China. You got North Korea, and then on the other side you got all these greedy, conspiring, you know, people. You gotta get a dog to get into a dog fight, man. You can't be no cute, cuddly preacher man. You see, we want a president who's we want a president who's a nice man. Well, Carter was that probably, and he screwed up royally, because that's on the world stage. That don't cut it. You got to have some grit. And out of the midst of this culture and this elitism, you got a guy who's coming along, and he's trying to be successful in that world. He wants to be on the inside. And what does he run? What does he see? And what does he something snaps in him, and he looks and he realizes, yes, there's things about this that I wanted, but I also realize this is destructive. This country that I love and I appreciate, these people are going to destroy it. Not necessarily because they're intending to destroy it, but their greed will destroy it. Now, there are people in the midst of it who do want to destroy our nation. So in the midst of all that, and it seemed like there was no way to expose this really, the only people that talked about it were crazy people who believed in conspiracy theories. And they thought they had it in the bag. They were running without opposition. And Trump came out of nowhere and he won the first time. Freaked them out. They were not prepared. Because they don't just perfectly rig an election or whatever. They have to do things. It's not like this runs just smooth. They have to have the appearance. They can't remove the veil and expose themselves. They have to do it in such a way that it doesn't appear that they're just doing it. They don't want to appear as tyrants. And they got arrogant and they messed up. And Trump won. And it just blew the whole thing wide open. Their vitriol, their hate for humanity and the country and the people, and the darkness that they were serving, it's all been getting exposed. So all this hate was pointed at this man, Donald Trump. And I'm not saying he made every right decision. I think, and obviously COVID, just like, he was not prepared for that level of tactics. And we all know now that it was definitely made in a lab, and it was a coup. Wake up and smell the coffee. Just because things don't appear as as what they say they are. Just because that seems fake doesn't mean that people don't get destroyed in the midst of it. They don't care about human lives. In fact, many of these people want to intentionally lower the population, which means kill people. These people are into eugenics. They're into population control. That's wicked. They may think they're doing the righteous thing, but they're not. And all this vitriol and hate is focused in, though, on one person, Donald Trump. Now, who they really hate are Christians. They really hate conservative, Constitution, righteous Americans. That's who they really hate. And ultimately, they hate Jesus Christ. They hate God and they hate His Son. But all that hate is focused in on one man, Donald Trump. And they've tried to destroy him every which way they can. And it hasn't worked. Because God has made him in such a way that if you punch him, he only gets stronger. And then this last weekend they tried to kill him. And we do not fully know all that went wrong, but the Secret Service looks like idiots. And it's at least gross negligence and incredible incompetence, because it's a DEI Secret Service, and they don't function well, which is probably part of the truth. But I think they wanted him dead. I think there are forces that want Donald Trump dead, and they wanted to let it happen. Their incompetence is that it didn't happen. They're not competent enough to even do it. At the same time, why are they not competent? Why can they not fully destroy this man? Because God won't let it happen. You got to be pretty blind to not think that the hand of God protected Donald Trump when those bullets started flying at his head, right at his head. That ain't coincidence. Life is not random. Evil doesn't act randomly. They're trying to kill him. And it doesn't I don't need him to be a good guy. I don't need him to be my pastor. But we need a guy that will stand up, and when the bullets are flying, and the hate is flying, he stands up and puts his fist in the air and he says, "No, I will fight against it." Oh, come on. Give me a break. You may not even like him, but that's courage. That's boldness. Dude gets shot and he stands up. And he says, "No." He has every reason. If he is this greedy lowlife that is out for his own hide, his own pocketbook, he would not be running for president right now. Because any of these other cats, if this stuff started happening to them, they would just fold. Because they're cowards. You know, Matthew 5, it says in the Beatitudes, it says, "Blessed are the peacemakers." Now, many times we read that and we think, that means basically what we think is like peacekeepers, people who are peaceable, right? No, this says peace. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Matthew 5:9. But what's a peacemaker? It's someone who makes peace where there is no peace. Why did Samuel Colt call his single-action army revolver a peacemaker? Or why did it become called that? And maybe he didn't call it that. Because it's powerful enough to stop the fight. And so clearly, if you open your eyes, we got one side that call themselves whatever, Republican or Democrat, and they're warmongers. They make money off of war, and they want to keep us in international wars because they are in the business of war. BlackRock and all that. BlackRock's important if you know what I'm talking about. These people are warmongers. But warmongers are out for themselves. As soon as they feel truly threatened in their own person, they will back off. They're cowards. If someone really, like they think they're going to lose, they back off. But a peacemaker is not someone who doesn't fight, but it is someone who fights for the beloved, for the thing they love, for the thing that is worth protecting. They go past the point of self-preservation. They're willing to die like Christ died for all of us in measure. They're willing to be destroyed in reputation and in body to bring true peace. And that's what I think is going on with Donald Trump. I don't know his heart, but by his actions, he is standing up and standing in the gap. And I have been filled with hope ever since he first became president and started to do good things. Not even getting into, there's a lot of prophecy I think is goofy, but there are prophetic words about it as well. And I am filled with hope, and I pray that this assassination attempt emboldens him for righteousness, but also humbles him and makes him realize that without God he is nothing. Do I think he's good and he'll do everything right? No. I'm under no illusion. But does it seem that he is on a mission and a vision to fight against the obviously wicked forces? Yeah. I didn't get to vote for him the first time because I was not my own fault, but I missed my flight. I was in London and I was a day late. I missed it by a day. I was a day late to vote for Donald Trump. And it didn't matter, he won. But the reason then I was going to vote for Trump was not because I knew what he was going to do. I was totally unsure about this dude. He's a loose cannon. Who knows what he might do? But I did know what Hillary would do. I did know what the other side would do. And that's what they've been doing with Biden. And it is wicked, and it is horrible, and it's ruining the country. It's bad on practical levels with the economy, and it's spreading lies, and it's after our children. It wants to either mutilate their bodies or kill them before they're even born. That's nuts. That is wicked. And I'm not talking about a girl who has an abortion who is confused and hurting and doesn't know the right thing. She might do the unrighteous thing, but I think there's a place for forgiveness and compassion for that. Because the world's a scary place, and if you're very alone, it's hard to bring a baby into the world. But I do believe that Donald Trump will fight, for the most part, to do the right thing. There's plenty I wouldn't agree with him on. But we need to shift away from the path of destruction that we're on. We need a president who will stand up to the nations that want to be with us and do the right things. Let's play our part together. And there are nations that we do not need to be partnered with, that we need to stand against. And sorry, folks, Ukraine, Zelensky is not on the right side. But at the same time, he's standing against Putin. So it's like, that's another thing. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I believe they're both probably wrong. And the right answer is somewhere in the middle. I don't know. But if I think anybody's going to actually do anything about it, I think it's Donald Trump. Because that is the biggest testimony, is that none of these, there were wars going on and they were shifting out. We were ending wars, international wars under Trump. And now we're on the brink of World War III. We don't need to be partnered. We don't need to be any kind of partnership with China. And we don't need to placate to North Korea or Russia or Iran. But we don't need to be playing games and giving our money away to other corrupt nations just so we can stay in a war and a proxy wars and all this other stuff. Not that I'm an expert on any of it. But I see Donald Trump as a peacemaker because he seems to be on a fight for the right things overall. And I pray to God he becomes the next president. I really do. That doesn't mean that things will be hunky-dory, not at all. But we need to, this stuff needs to be, there's got to be, something's got to give. Barring Jesus coming back. I don't think we're to that time just yet. And we're not out of the woods, and things could get crazy. But we need a commander-in-chief with a set of balls that works, and a brain that's functional and is aimed in the right direction. Not perfectly, but aimed that way. And I think we saw that man on Saturday. God saved his life, but he took a bullet and he stood up with courage and bravery and said, let's do this. And the whole world saw it. And I think we've made a shift. We were that close to it going totally the other way. They tried to take him out. You may not agree with me, but you name someone that is a viable candidate that in the arena of politics that is actually could be there and will do the right thing. You name me another one that's viable. There are lots of better people that I might pick. Absolutely. But of the because there's lots of this we can't control. But of the ones that are viable that are going to be in that position of the most powerful man in the world, which the president is, who's the best to shift us in the right direction? Not perfection, but hey, God can use whoever He wants. Right? You wouldn't have picked David, King David, to be your pastor, but God wanted that man, despite his sins, despite the things he did. He was the man for the job. And the Lord works in mysterious ways. So that's my 2 cents on it. Maybe that will help someone. I believe we need to pray for this man, for his protection. And maybe I'll speak some more on what I think. But I'm not going to make a whole lot of videos on it. It's not something I want to harp on all the time. Because I think learning how to get on your knees and pray and take access to the throne of God above all thrones because of the blood of Jesus matters way more than your vote does for every 4 years or even local elections. Your vote is these moments, and they matter, but they're not always the most important thing. But I do have a few more thoughts. Maybe speak to some of the more things in the spirit, maybe. But that's it for this video. It's gone on long enough. All right. God bless you and keep you. May His face shine upon you. May He give you rest.